Welcome to the College Sports Conversations presented by the Ncaa. I'm Kayla Gagnon. As part of Pride Month in June, we are talking with student athletes in the LGBTQ plus community about their journeys and college athlete experience. This is a topic that is extremely close to my heart as a former swimmer at West Virginia University and as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. A few years ago, I started my own podcast, Queer Mountaineers, that challenges the popular narrative of what it means to be queer and Appalachian, and it's now on its fourth season. Our guest today is former Hamilton College men's basketball player Kena Gilmour. Kena recently graduated from Hamilton, where he studied government and world politics and has a very powerful story to share. Kena, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today, Kayla.
Of course. Well, let's roll right into it. Well, happy Pride Month.
Yeah, same to you. Same to you.
Thank you. Do you have any plans to celebrate this month?
I'm hoping to go to some Pride events. I'm in the 845, which is, I'm specifically in New Paltz right now in New York. And there's a lot of events in the neighboring towns. So I'm looking forward to some of those.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I definitely will be going to some more local Pride events myself. There's something really special about going to smaller scale ones, just really be able to connect with the people in your area.
Absolutely. And especially after last year, there was no events, at least that I was able to go to. So there's been a full year hiatus.
Absolutely. I mean, I was really grateful for the virtual events that we were able to do for Pride last year. I helped to run a few virtual events myself, and nothing quite like, feeling the energy of the people around you and just, the tangible connections, It's hard. It can be difficult to do over virtual events, but I am still grateful for the virtual connections that we made. Well, let's jump right into your athletic journey. Well, first off, what got you into basketball to begin with?
Absolutely. I'm going to have to give credit to my older brother, who is 2 years older than me. I always was competing with him and trying to copy him. And he started playing basketball probably when he was in third or fourth grade. So I would go to his practices and be sitting on the side. I was not allowed to practice or participate, but I would just kind of copy and mimic everybody's moves and then go home and try it myself. And as I got older, I got more serious. And by the time I hit high school, that was the only sport I wanted to focus on. And that was where I wanted to invest a lot of my time.
So you came out your freshman year, is that correct?
Yeah, I came out. I actually didn't even come out to my parents until around Thanksgiving time of my freshman year of college. And I did not start coming out to any of my teammates or peers until after my season. So the spring of my freshman year.
Yeah. With you're coming out to your teammates, especially, what was that like?
I ended up coming out to them incrementally. I started with my two closest friends on the team who were also first year students, and then two of the upperclassmen that I really felt close and connected with. And from there, I kind of just spread out and got more comfortable and confident. It was incredibly nerve-wracking. I still actually remember the first time I came out to the two of my closest friends, and I was shaking before and I was really nervous, but they were incredibly supportive. And I think it was a surprise to them and something that was kind of foreign to them. I don't think they were used to having anyone come out to them in the past. But once I kind of got their acceptance and I realized that they really had my back no matter what, it became a lot easier. And each time I came out, it felt like more of a weight was knocked off my shoulder. By the time I was a sophomore, when new students were coming in, new teammates, I easily came out to them, and it was not as big a deal or as kind of strenuous on me.
Yeah, I mean, with coming out, it is a lot easier to do that with like one or two people at a time than some people do have their coming out experience with like doing it in a group, but I had a similar experience myself with like coming out to a few teammates, but then I ended up doing like kind of barreling out of the closet with some of my teammates and kind of came out in a bit of a burst of energy there. But that's amazing though that you had an accepting experience. And you mentioned that with having your friends not having someone come out to them before, it's also like not much representation of LGBTQ plus people in sports, at least in higher level sports that go on TV and things like that. What was that like, with like kind of being that sort of representation a little bit for some people around you?
Yeah, I really felt like I was breaking a barrier because I had only heard of one out basketball player in the past, and no one I had played with, no one I was watching on TV. I did not hear about anyone being a part of the queer community. in men's basketball specifically. So it was a little bit, even more difficult, I think, in my own mind, because I was, having to break all these stigmas and all these assumptions. Most people thought that there could not be someone who was gay and also a really competitive, competent basketball player. And, for most of my teammates, they had not even had a gay friend in general, which was also a little bit sad in terms of how sports are very much sequestered. So I also felt like I was kind of acting as the monolith, and that I was, representing an entire community, which is also stressful. And I thought that I really had to kind of prove myself, because I was not only doing this for myself, but, hopefully all the queer people after me, that would feel more comfortable, being themselves and still playing their sport that they loved.
Absolutely. That's amazing that you had managed to be find an accepting environment with your teammates. I read that your coach was one of the first people that you came out to. What was that like?
Yeah, he was actually the third person I came out to after both of my parents. And that's a little bit unique, I think, of kind of an experience. Most people come out to their friends first, but I felt like the secret was so bottled up inside me that I needed to first tell my parents. And I think my coach knew that, something was a little bit off with me. I was a little bit more mad at times than usual. And he knew that I was struggling with something. He obviously was not able to tell what that was, but he had really gained my trust. And he was someone I kind of looked up to and appreciated. So I came out to him, and, he was also incredibly supportive. And just knowing that I had him, as a support system, made coming out to my teammates a lot easier, knowing that I had him as kind of a backbone in support. And it also just allowed me to play a lot more free, knowing that, he accepted me for the entirety of who I was, not just as this athlete or this, basketball player, but as like a human being as well.
Absolutely. Well, clearly your coach had a very close relationship with you. He was obviously one of the first people that you came out to. Do you mind elaborate a little bit more on your relationship with your coach, especially going from coming out into, your final year as a student athlete at Hamilton?
Yeah. When someone is in the closet, at least I can only speak for myself, but I assume a lot of people are like this, you are hyper vigilant of any mentions of anything related to queerness. So if I heard anything that was homophobic, it was almost like there was this radar in my brain. I would turn and kind of pay attention to see people's receptions. If someone said something somewhat homophobic, I would see how people are responding. And he had always been, overtly supportive. He did not outspokenly say like, I stand with the queer community or do anything, really large or kind of gargantuan in that way. But there was a lot of subtle and small, acts of inclusion that I kind of picked up on. So I kind of already had this prediction that he would be supportive beforehand. And so when I kind of got to that moment, I felt like I had his trust. If I had a coach that I thought was somewhat homophobic, I likely would not have came out to them, or, my entire process would have gone very differently, I assume. But I had already kind of built this, or he had built this kind of repertoire in the past with just being a very solid human being. And, that gave me the comfort and trust in him to open up.
Absolutely. That's amazing to have that kind of support system with your coach and your teammates. And yeah, I can definitely relate to the hypervigilance of, trying to see who, if anyone would react, towards a homophobic remark. In my case, thankfully, there's at least one other gay person on my teams that did make things,
I'm jealous.
A little easier. I know, yeah. But I was the only gay person on the women's team for the longest time. But at least I had someone on the men's side of things who was also part of the queer community as well. But, hopefully because of your, being outspoken and and sharing your story and things like that, future teammates, at your college and at other colleges like it will be able to feel comfortable with their teammates too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was one of the, the motivations for me, was knowing that even if my journey was difficult, there was people previous to me that kind of paved the way, and that I could kind of continue to pave that, so that someone in 10 years, they won't even have to blink an eye just to be able to kind of be who they are.
Yeah. It's just noticing with any kind of progress, whether in any industry or, sport or things like that, it's like there's people just kind of chip away at, certain assumptions and expectations. And then the next person chisels a little bit more off until we get to where we are today, where while we still have a lot of work to do, it's definitely become a more positive space. I mean, look at us right now. We're on a podcast talking about being LGBTQ and an athlete, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. This is something that even 5 years ago, I would have had a very difficult time envisioning. So the progress is absolutely occurring. Just continue, hope it continues to do so.
Absolutely. It definitely, I mean, looking around this year at all of the different, major, organizations like the NCAA and other organizations and other even brands, sharing the rainbow flag and sharing their support for the community, seeing that kind of, visibility,
Mm-hmm.
seeing you can't walk through a Target without seeing at least a couple rainbows.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, you were I believe, now correct me if I'm wrong, you were the first person to win the NCAA Division III LGBTQ Athlete of the Year. Is that right?
I was, yes, it was actually last year was the first year that they had the award. So I was the first.
Say the award title 5 times fast, right? NCAA Division III LGBTQ Athlete of the Year. There you go. Tongue twister right there. Well, how did it feel to receive this honor?
It was incredible. It was really odd timing because it was, my coach had nominated me previous to COVID. And then with COVID, not kind of all the complications, I had not forgotten about the award, but it was kind of on a back burner in my mind. So when I received a call from the NCAA saying that I won, I was incredibly happy. And it really, for me, just felt like a celebration of, all the support that I had and kind of my own personal journey and all the trials and tribulations that I had gone through, both as a queer person and as an athlete. And I was probably more proud of that award than any other athletic accolade that I had received from my entire college career. So it was a really, beautiful way to kind of to tip off the end of a 4-year journey.
Absolutely. Congratulations again on that. What does receiving, and not just receiving this award, you were the first person to receive this award. What does that mean for you?
Yeah. I think, again, we talked about chipping away. I think it shows that this is almost a little bit of like a landmark in time of a more accepting future, of a more inclusive athletic community, of the NCAA becoming more, pro-queer, queer friendly, and that, we are here to stay in this athletic sphere and in all spheres. And for me personally, it was, when I first decided to come out, I was really unsure if this was the right decision, if I should wait till after my career, if this was going to compromise my ability to compete or have relationships with my teammates. And, to kind of go through all that and then receive this award was really, for me, just proof that I made the right decision, and that, I was really excited that, I had kind of gone through all the loops and the jump through all the hoops to get to this position.
Absolutely. Well, besides being a student and an athlete, which is already a pretty demanding, schedule right there, you've done a lot of community involvement in your area with, fundraising. And I believe there was also you go to like elementary schools, I believe. Is that correct? With like,
Yeah.
and you talk with kids about, being a student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also the Athletes of Color initiative, that is
Mm-hmm.
something else that you were involved in. Do you mind talking to us a little bit about some of those community initiatives that you've done over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. When I went into college, I noticed that there was a little bit of a gap between, there was a lot of committees for athletes to kind of get integrated into the school and obviously get used to like the rigor of having such a huge commitment. And then there was a lot of organizations oriented around the student of color experience. So there was, different organizations for Latinx students, for Black students, for African identifying students, but there was no organization that really orchestrated the two in terms of being both Black and being an athlete. And I had noticed in my own personal experience, there was, certain difficulties that were really kind of specific to that group. Let's say a teammate accidentally says, a microaggression, or you have an assistant coach that says something kind of problematic. And I myself did not know how to navigate that. So as I got older, myself, one of my teammates, and then one of the women's teammates came together and decided to create a coalition, specifically to deal, with these problems. And, Mrs. Merrill, or Miriam Merrill, who was the assistant athletic director at the time, was incredibly supportive. She actually, the Hamilton is in the Ncaa, which is like the greater organization of all the schools in our conference. and we went to a meeting with other athletes of color, organized by the Ncaa, and talked with students at other schools. And we really realized, oh, we are not, just special in having this experience. So many people are kind of going through a lot of the same problems, but we were really happy to address it specifically at our school. And, I hope the organization kind of continues to grow. I know the Ncaa itself is really working on creating consortiums for coaches of color and for students, so that in the future, there's more organization and, more of these inequalities are able to be addressed.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and for laying that groundwork for it. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about why this sort of work is important to you?
I think since I was younger, since I was a little kid, I always noticed different forms of inequality and inequity. And I was always so surprised by, we're just allowing this to go on, or we're just considering this to be the norm, whether it be, economic discrimination or gender-based discrimination, or obviously anything related to queerness or race. And I just decided that, if I am put in positions of privilege, which, we both were as athletes, we can kind of utilize these platforms to push the boundaries and kind of open the envelope. So I saw myself as, last year as a senior athlete, someone who had a lot of influence in the school, that it was important for me to kind of take some of the difficulties I had and hopefully alleviate or lessen them for future students. So in a lot of my struggles as being a Black athlete, I thought, if this can be changed for the next person, why not, put the effort into doing it? And I was obviously not the only person to kind of help create this coalition, but, just to be able to do that is such an incredible feeling, knowing that someone who comes after me is not going to have to go through those same obstacles.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, you mentioned kind of paving the way and being visible. You've shared your story probably plenty of times. You're on an inclusion forum, you're on the Final Four talks. What's your why for sharing the story, over and over again? Why is it important to you?
When I was younger, I was very confused about, kind of the reality of being gay and being an athlete and, being a competitive athlete at that. And I had searched for people to speak on these types of things. I had searched for role models or people who had gone through that experience. And it was a lot more difficult to find people who were comfortable speaking on this subject 5 or 10 years ago. 10 years ago was almost sadly, non-existent. So now that I have the opportunity to kind of pay that forward, and there were a few people, one specifically was Derek Gordon, who was a basketball player who played at both Seton Hall and UMass and a couple other schools, who wasn't out gay, Black basketball player. And seeing him was radical for me and really eye-opening. So, now that I'm in the position to kind of speak in these things, why not tell it as many times as I can? Because there's someone who could listen to this who may have missed the NCAA Inclusion Forum, or, one of the previous talks. So that is, one of my main motivations.
Absolutely. And what advice do you have for other people who are going through similar experiences to you?
Yeah. Find someone you trust that you can talk to, whether it be a friend, a mentor, someone who works at the school you're at, your coach, a therapist, but just, find someone to talk to so that that whatever you're going through is not solely in your head, but you can kind of speak it into reality. And then, find a community. Like you said, there's now Zoom land. So you can find queer groups and wherever you are, solely on the internet if you're not able to travel or meet people in person. But I really just think, finding someone to talk to and then finding a community are two of the, the largest things that I think once I did to kind of, change my reality.
Absolutely. I think with my experience as well, the internet played a really big role in me finding the words to understand my experience. Even if people online didn't have the exact same experience to me, those common grounds were really impactful to me. Even, think websites like, I almost want to cringe saying this, but Tumblr. A lot of communities are being formed on places like Discord. I've heard a lot about Discord being a place for, queer youth to connect with each other. That's actually something that my local Pride organization is trying to do as well. So congratulations on graduating recently. That's so exciting. What what's kind of like your plans for the future after finishing your education at Hamilton College?
Yeah, absolutely. The past year I taught at a boarding school in Eastern Connecticut, the Pomfret School. I taught English and history, and I coached basketball as an assistant. And I really tried to integrate, DEI work into all I did, whether it was, pedagogically structuring my lesson plans around kind of more of a decolonial history, or even in English with the books I taught and the representation that the characters were able to give. In the future, I think I want to kind of continue in the social justice oriented track. I don't think I'm going to teach forever, but I do think that I'm going to kind of continue to try to impact people's lives. So I cannot give you a finite answer, but that thematically is kind of where I'm headed.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I'm pretty sure at this point, especially after graduating, you used to getting all questions. Oh, what do you want to do in the future? What do you want to do after you graduate?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know I've certainly gotten those questions.
Same.
But on the social justice track, what would you like to do with, social justice work in the future?
Yeah, I think I want to, to the best of my ability, keep integrating, queer representation into athletic spheres. Because even though we're having this discussion, even though there have been more athletes to come out, it is something specifically in, hyper-masculine sports and contact sports that is still rare. There's still not an out NBA player or NFL player or MLB player or even NHL player. So there are obviously, if we're talking about thousands and thousands of men, there are obviously people who are queer in those spaces, but they don't feel comfortable. So I think just really trying to keep, pushing forward and making sure that, all spaces really feel inclusive. And also just kind of, in terms of, racial equity, keep trying to push for more inclusion, keep fighting for equity, keep fighting for police reform. So there's really a lot of different kind of avenues where, one can help the world. There's obviously a lot of problems, but I think those are two of the largest for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think as athletes, even former athletes, we have a responsibility to be visible, even if we were, in the areas that we lived in for a short period of time. We still have a responsibility as queer people, as former athletes, as human beings to, shine a light on issues like, lack of representation and, racial inequality. Thank you for sharing that. Well, my last questions, what are some of the things that you've taken from your classroom education, the basketball court, and community involvement that you hope to carry into the future with anything that you're doing, social justice work, career, anything?
Yeah. One of the largest takeaways I've had is that we are capable, even as young people, of affecting change. It's not this stagnant wall of things are just a certain way and that's how they're going to stay, but we are able to, make things better, positively, change or impact things. So really, if we see a problem and we as young people can come together as a collective, we can make a huge impact on society. And I think I went into college kind of thinking that, every system, whether it be equitable or not, was set in stone and kind of immovable. But, I kind of realized through my education, through my personal experiences that, again, we kind of just have to chip away and try to create the reality and the world that we want.
Be the change you wish to see. I know that quote gets slapped on every classroom poster, but
Everywhere.
It's true everywhere. But I mean, it's everywhere for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before we sign off, are there any final thoughts or comments you'd like to make?
I do not have any. I just want to thank you and the NCAA for putting this on and kind of continuing to highlight queer voices. And I'm so happy that this is happening and that I hope it continues to exist.
Well, Kena, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your story. We really appreciate your opening up and sharing your experience with all the people who are listening right now.
Thank you.
Of course. And thank you to our audience for tuning in throughout this month as we celebrate Pride. For more of me behind the mic, you can check out Queer Mountaineers, my podcast, on iTunes and Spotify, and just about wherever else you get your podcasts from. This has been College Sports Conversations presented by the NCAA. We look forward to talking with you again.